Hello and welcome to our midweek conversation at First Baptist Sweetwater, where we strive to be the first responders of God's love. My name is Jerry Hendricks, and we're here for episode 400. T, were you aware that this was episode 400?
No. In fact, I thought you were about to say 499 or something.
No, it should be, if I did my calculations correct, because I did this a couple of weeks ago, this is episode 400.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. We've been doing this for a while, and we actually started about this time of year, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, because it was right around, we were either getting into or about to start Lent.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So it's been a good journey, but it is a good rhythm for Teek and I to get together and visit about things going on here at the church. And we appreciate the opportunity to be a part of your midweek. And that's sort of the way that we do that here. So it's going real well. Hey, did you have any idea that Fat Tuesday was only one Tuesday out of the year?
Yes.
Okay, I was just curious.
Dude, I heard your intro to it Sunday.
Yeah, I fell. It was flat.
I don't know how many people, how often do you hear Fat Tuesday? Most of the time we hear it referred to as Mardi Gras, right?
Right.
And I noticed I have a friend in Galveston. They're already having Mardi Gras parades. I was like, that's a little bit early.
Well, I didn't know you could do that, but since you can,
then you can have Fat Tuesday
you can have more than one
day.
Fat Tuesday in the year.
Now, I have pancakes more than once a year.
Okay, we're having a Shrove
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I thought it was really interesting, the story you told about your friend who's just always had pancakes the day before Ash Wednesday and didn't know why. It was just tradition. It's like the story of they always cut off the end of the ham.
I know.
I thought that was cool.
It was absolutely crazy because I did not see that many people over the weekend. So it was a very small sampling, but two different people said that they had pancakes on the night before Ash Wednesday, and I go, "That's crazy." So they had no idea why.
They just did it.
Right.
Tradition.
And so now, have you been doing it for a few years?
We've done it a couple times.
Okay.
And it's just because our friend Father Howes, Jared Howes,
right,
had told me about it, and I was like, "Hey, that's a neat idea." We don't necessarily cook enough pancakes to use up all the sugar in the house, so.
Well, there's not a lot of information out there on this, and so I mean, I did what most people do. I Googled it to try to find out more information, and really, you had more information about the background of it and sort of the meaning of it than what I was able to find online.
It comes from the word shrive.
It absolutely does, but I didn't want to go down the road of absolution. Was that what it is?
Right.
Yeah, and so for an announcement,
right?
And so, but I think next week I think you just play on who doesn't want to eat pancakes.
That's true. Wait, you don't like pancakes?
I'm not crazy about them,
but you'll eat the bacon and sausage.
I prefer French toast, but it's so funny that Sharon grew up. Her family, they grew up with pancakes, and my family ate French toast. We hardly ever had pancakes.
Yeah, we mostly had French toast growing up, from what I remember. That was kind of our meal for whenever, before the toss and the tax or whatever, we had French toast.
You put enough syrup and I like honey on it. Shoot, I'm happy.
Do you use peanut butter or butter?
Butter? Are you kidding me?
No, peanut butter all the way.
Okay, now I love peanut butter, but there's
got to be crunchy.
It's not a sandwich, Teek. You don't need to put it on your pancakes.
It can be, and it's so good. Pancakes, waffles, whatever, I put it on it.
Sharon does that too. But
so that's kind of like, but she's from California. I think, and I learned it. No,
what do
my
you mean
dad
by
did
that?
it.
She's weird?
Well, no, my stepmom's from California, and I learned a lot of my eating stuff from her. Does Sharon eat ketchup on her mac and cheese?
Oh, gosh, no.
Oh, well, I do.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that's a subject for another day.
Well, I got lots of stuff like that. That's good.
Oh,
we grew
great.
up a fun way. But yeah, so breakfast for supper, I'll do that anytime, especially if we have a reason to gather.
And with friends, yeah.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more fun. The funny thing was when I was talking to our friend Mike Wilkes about it, he said, "Does the church have a pancake gun?" Well, I'm thinking of, I've heard of potato guns. I'm trying to figure out what you shoot a pancake out of.
You got to understand the source here.
That's true.
So
I was
so I'm just saying.
Apparently, it's just a little deal you hold.
We'll leave it at that. That you have to. But if we're going to commit to this, I don't mind going to Kitchen Supply and picking us picking us up one.
Right, but I want to make sure it's a real thing. I don't want to be set up by Mike that it's like blinker fluid or something. I don't want to go in and
I've
ask
seen
for
him
that.
at Kiwanis Pancake Supper or deal that they do in Abilene. So
Okay, just making sure it's a real thing. I don't want to be
out.
I want to be that guy who walks in.
Fun stuff. Well, it's it's I like the way that we've been able over the last few years to kind of develop our own way. I thought of this. We don't talk about this a lot, but when I first came here, one of the things that sort of emerged from our conversations in terms of developing a church identity and so forth is that we wanted to be uniquely first. And that doesn't mean first ahead of someone. It means uniquely First Baptist Sweetwater.
Right.
And so we're not trying to do things like someone else, and we don't pick up other ideas. We really strive to see how we can best do ministry and accomplish the goals that we have. And so
meaningful ways.
And that are unique to us or the community and the surrounding area. So for some of the marquee events that we do that are on the Christian calendar, it's nice to see. It's nice to be able to work with that and to see other things kind of come into that. We did something last year that could have been really, really solid, but it just didn't work well. It wasn't well attended, and so I'm pretty optimistic about this. But the other thing is we don't go around just looking for events to plan either.
Right.
This really just sort of emerged out of someone inquiring. You already had a history with this, and then the idea just kind of came together quickly as something that is sort of a low risk for us to try to experiment with, but I think it could be another thing that adds to it, because what we talked about was making sure that we're doing a really good job educating people on these different aspects of the Christian calendar.
That way we don't get to the point where we're like, oh, well, I have pancakes, but we don't know why.
Right. Exactly. Or
I'm going to bring my blueberry gum.
Or ashes on our forehead or whatever else it is that we might do.
We explain the ash part of it. I think every year it gets more and more where people understand what we're doing, and so I appreciate that. But even the word imposition of ashes, now that we use that, I think that's caught on and they understand what it means. But that's something where at first we were kind of worried that people wouldn't understand it. They'd be maybe not as willing to participate. And so every year we say participate to your level of comfort, but we explain it all along the way.
Right.
And so it's not this weird thing where you're just doing it to do it. It's supposed to be meaningful to your spiritual formation.
Yeah. And so that's right around the corner for us next week, in fact.
Yeah.
And so we'll have that. It'll be the only activities that we have at our church next Wednesday. So we're excited about that and excited about moving into that season. We've probably been ready for it. Yeah. But it's taken a while.
Yeah. I'm just ready for a season where every Wednesday we don't have a cold front coming through. Tired of that season. It's every Wednesday. It's happening again this Wednesday.
Yes, it is, Teague, and I feel bad for you, buddy.
It wears me out, but whatever.
Well, the Sunday we continue to talk about this becoming a disciple, and one of the things that it's kind of run around through my head in thinking ahead or thinking from Sunday into next week and into the Lenten season is, helping our church understand the track. What I would say is the track for being a disciple in our church. There's so much of it we either expect people or assume. I guess assume is a better word. We assume people are tracking with us and growing along that track, but we know that that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
So being able this series to be a little bit direct about that, I'm excited about getting to the place where we're talking about what that track looks like, and the season of Shrove Tuesday, Ash Wednesday, Palm Sunday, all those things fit together in that track.
Yeah. The one thing that caught me this week, I never thought about it until you said it, that nobody got up to help Jesus. When Jesus gets up, they're all sitting around the table. When someone gets up, you watch them move across the room, especially when they start taking off clothing and putting on a towel.
I'd never thought of it either.
And I was just like, yeah, no one did. And then I got thinking about it, because you said something like, and I might be misquoting, but you said something like, usually when someone gets up to do something, someone else helps them with it. They see it, and they start helping, and they pitch in. And I got thinking about it, I was like, does that happen that often? Sometimes it does. but not when you're doing the stinky jobs. And if they figured out that he was about to do the stinky job, then maybe they didn't want to do that, and maybe that's kind of how people are in general.
Yeah.
That if you're doing the stinky job, good job, proud of you.
I didn't want to read into it too much.
Right.
But because there's several, could have been several reasons why those things didn't happen. But I felt like if we started to consider the opportunities as disciples that we miss, where we could be deeply blessed or deeply bless someone else, then that might help us to be a little bit more willing to live in this life on mission, rather than just sort of keeping a faith, bookending a faith,
right.
That like I was reading from that N.T. Wright book, and that's always interesting how some of those things come together. That I wasn't reading that book for study for the messages. I was looking for something else to read, and I thought I would try it again.
That's some heavy for fun reading, but it's N.T. Wright, so it's great.
Yeah, it is.
And then contrasting that with, as they're walking, getting ready for that evening meal, the disciples are arguing about who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, and then Jesus says, "This is how you do it," and puts on a towel. There's
so many points to that, and I've probably in this series I've been a little bit. I don't know if I've introduced a lot of them. I'm just thinking about this, Teak, is that in your student ministry where you have more of a teaching concept, it's easier to flow in and out of some of the things that you're wanting kids to get.
Right.
Right. So much of the worship setting that I lead is it's a monologue.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of other things that when you start to understand that story of Jesus that fit together with the different points that we're making. This Sunday is going to be another one of those. I did mess up the order when I mentioned this Sunday. The one on the 120 disciples is going to be the last week, not next week.
You didn't have to confess that. I don't think anybody would have remembered.
Well, it happens.
So you ended the service the last 2 weeks in a little bit different way.
Yeah. Are we going to evaluate that here just live?
I like it. I'm not saying I like the evaluation of it live, but tell people what you're doing. I like it. I think it's been really good.
So we are, in the way that we structure that time of worship, very intentional, very strategic. And we've become more so through the COVID experience where we were just doing things on a camera. And I've been more intentional through even the announcements that we make and the way that we make the announcements in different times. And so one of the things that we had talked about in staff meeting was, in communication, how important the opening is and then the closing. And we did that. You brought that up some months ago, maybe 6 months ago. And then I was reading this book again, called When,
right,
at the start of the new year, and he talked about how books will typically end with something that's profound, and that people remember that. And so we collaborated and talked about, and I talked to the worship team about ending our service with just one or two lines that will help capture the essence of what we were saying, so it's the last thing on your mind as you exit. Right. And so we've done that the last 2 weeks. It is a very stressful piece. Those two sentences are the most stressful thing that I do right now.
Yeah,
in regard to that. And I've always, endings have always been hard for me. The introductions, they just kind of come to me, and most of the time they fit. A lot of times I'll even have more than one. This week, I knew I was going to do impressions. Probably 2 weeks ago, I knew I was going to do impressions, things that impress us. And there were 3 or 4 different ways that I could do it.
Yeah.
And so I never did come up with anything else, so I stuck with impressions and then the particular way that I did it. But the ending, that's...
it's hard to script it out because you're doing 2 sentences that you want people to walk away with, and that's what they remember.
Yeah, so... Anyways, we'd love for our 3 listeners to let us know how they liked that part of it.
Well, one of them I know likes it, so.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, we'll talk about that feedback after we finish this particular episode. Episode 400.
Episode 400.
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to do after we wrap this up is check and make sure.
That's episode
And if
400?
it's not, then we're going to have to redo this whole thing.
Yes.
Well, we sure appreciate you joining us for this conversation we have today. A lot of things going on at this time of year for our church and many others, and so we pray that for all of us it would be one of those deeply meaningful years. And so look forward to being a part of your worship on Sunday.
See you then.